So I'm actually very excited to have you on the show, and I'll tell you why. Because a small channel like mine, we can get academics, political commentators, YouTube commentators, but it's very difficult for us to get professionals onto the show. And I think you're the first professional who's doing solid research and publishing papers who is on the show. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. But I think you have had like I've gone through a profile briefly, but you've had other people as well, like yeah, politicians and other from
Exactly. So commentators, but not someone who is yeah.
into academics, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that is why I think the first question would be very fair to just ask you. It would be great if you could just break down to us what an, even if it's an Indian perspective, what an archaeologist does and how is it different from what a historian does.
So the working of the two disciplines are totally different. One is more or less largely field oriented, that is archaeology. History also has field work. It's not that historians don't, they just sit in a AC room and do research. That's not what historians do. Historians also need to go to field to clarify certain facts and figures and go to places and places. Even if a field work requires them to go to different archives or state, where they can sort of get old records, they have to do that sort of field work as well in historical context. Field work is required for archaeology also. Now the field work is different. What we
Okay.
do in archaeology, what we look in archaeology and what we look in historical context is different, and how we process that data is very different. Our goal at the end is same, to sort of reconstruct the past, to understand the past in a better way. Our goals are same, but the working is very different.
So do you think they're parallel fields or do you think that uh, archaeology archaeologist handovers to a historian and then it continues in the social
See, you
sciences?
need to understand from where do we see history is used it's used as a very generic term in our in public understanding, right?
Okay.
We say everything is history. But in academic terms, if I say what history is, history begins with written records. Before that, everything else is prehistory, right?
Okay.
So the
Okay.
definition of history is that when the moment you have written records, it's history. And before that, it's prehistory. Between the two, where you have writing, where you have written records, but you have not able to decipher it, is called proto-history. That is the Harappan civilization. So history basically starts with um, the presence of historical record. Now, the question that you asked, whether the two merges or are there any chronological order? If we were to excavate a site like Patliputra
Hmm.
or Vaishali, or excavate anywhere in Delhi, or any other city which is historical,
Okay.
excavation is archaeology.
Yep.
A city is historical. Therefore, we have to have a collaborative work, that is where the lines sort of merge. That's where the collaboration takes place between the history and archaeology. So we are doing historical archaeology. There's a term called historical archaeology, where history and archaeology both sort of walk hand in hand. But the goal is same. Whereas in prehistory, so the time period before the written records is all pure archaeology and science. Their
Mhm.
history then takes uses archaeological record as a background. A historian takes that as a foundation to study further in timeline. So this is where the timeline sort of plays an important role. So if you had to work on Ashokan period, archaeological evidence would be the edicts or the sites that are mentioned in the traveler's record, like Hunsang, and other Chinese travelers' record, in the records in Buddhist texts and other archival records. So that is historical research, right? And then the archaeology of sites like Nalanda or preservation otherwise will be part of broadly like archaeology.
So it's very interesting that you brought Harappan into the discussion, because my next question was about Harappa. But it's not a
Okay.
conventional question that someone would ask, like how old, how does it tie with the Indian subcontinent, and our basically is it
Yeah.
our heritage or something. But it's something that I read in John Key's book, India: A History. Right? It's actually so he's ironically a historian, right? And he was writing, and I like to quote what he has written. Clearly, Harappan settlements were not just India's first cities and townships, but indeed the world's first planned cities and townships. Now he's not even a professional historian. He's like a
He's a
someone who
narrative writer.
exactly. So he's a narrative writer, right? So where does an archaeologist like you stand on this statement, given that Mesopotamia, Egypt, and there has been a lot of work in archaeology done throughout the world?
See, Harappan cities were planned. The cities
Yes.
were planned. Of course, whether they were the first planned cities is difficult to say because, as you mentioned, there are contemporary civilizations. And the definition of civilization is that the moment your culture becomes like you start to find the characteristics of an urban setup, like the drainage system, where there is proper sanitation, then because and the cities are more planned, there's more economic gains, or you financially a city becomes more powerful. That's where a culture shifts into civilization. I've written about it as well. I've spoken, I think, about it as well in the past. There's a difference between archaeological culture and a civilization in archaeologist terms. A culture gives rise to a civilization, not the other way around. So when we talk
Mhm.
about a civilization, we are anyways implying that there are going to be urban cities,
Okay. Okay.
right? Now, Gurgaon, for a very long period of time, if people are from Delhi, would understand Gurgaon or area around Noida or Greater Noida today, which is, today it's becoming an educational hub, an industrial hub, and all of that. It was a group of multiple villages, right?
Okay.
Gurgaon became a big metro sort an urban setup because there was a need for the R for Delhi to expand, and it was need, there were so many other factors. So it grew from multiple small villages with a lot of open land, agricultural land, to an IT and a hub. I'm talking in terms, I mean, for Gurgaon, and also you have state of the art, big apartment buildings. People are now from Delhi moving to Gurgaon because they need space and all of that. So, see, this is where I'm talking about how cities rise.
Okay.
And when we talk about the cities, I think the best book to read about it, which is available, it's by an anthropologist, archaeologist, Monica Smith. She's worked in India as well, and she's a well-renowned archaeologist. And the book is titled as Cities. So in that she takes an anthropological take on it as well, because in US archaeology doesn't exist in isolation. Like it's anthropology and archaeology both together, which goes hand in hand, unlike in India and other parts. So in so there she takes an anthropological and archaeological stand about the cities, how the cities grow, and then how cities die down. So of course I agree they are the planned cities, but the first cities, no. I mean, there's a lot of parallel things that going on.
Yeah, that makes sense, Disha. I'll I'll take you further a little back, and maybe a political question is coming, which is historians get a lot of traction because maybe because they can be politicized, and you can politicize a lot of historians, and historical narratives come out of, so that leads to funding, right? And that leads to a lot of books and deals and stuff like that. However, archaeology is on the other side, and it's purely because it's a scientific method. It does not get a lot of political attention, a lot of citizenry attention. So where do you see, like, is that contention, like, is this a source of frustration for archaeologists when we're talking about funding?
The funding, see, funding is different, but I don't think largely archaeologists are bothered with what the whether there's a political traction or not.
Okay.
I don't think so. I've never seen archaeologists dying for political attention. In fact, we move away from political making. See, you will not find many archaeologists making political statements.
Exactly.
Except for barring some instances in the past, largely, if there any conversation that happens around archaeology, an archaeologist's statement would not be very political. Now, I'm not talking that archaeologists are not allowed to talk about certain aspects of history or think which, see, what you deem to be political, I
Mhm.
may not think it's political. It works like that. You may think talking about the epics of India could lead to a political attention. But for an archaeologist or a historian or anyone else who's working in this field, for us, with the way we look at epics are very different. It is not political. It then becomes a very different understanding. But as an
Mhm.
outsider who's not working in this particular area, who's not worked, who doesn't have that research objectives or questions, therefore you may think, if tomorrow if I'm working on sites of Mahabharata, you'll be like, Disha is now wanting political attention and she is going to be, like, she wants funding and she's but for me, I have also curiosity as a researcher. I also but I have a different curiosity. It will differ from your curiosity. You may think it's political, I may not think it's political. Now, coming to whether archaeologists get frustrated, I don't think so. Funding is a very different story. Even if you get funding, it's a problem because when the moment you get funding from any place, there is an obligation. So the funding is an issue, of course. But I don't think archaeologists at large would want to get into any political spat or any attention. And that's the reason why a lot many times they refrain from making statements openly in public. Usually the statements, and usually archaeologists only make statements when the moment they have a conclusive evidence. I mean, even I don't want any political attention. Thank you. It just doesn't appeal to any one of us.
On that, like, I would take this opportunity to just tell the viewers that there's a video of you talking about Ramayana and how it connects to archaeology in the print. So just check it out. It's an amazing video.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, okay, Disha, the final question I had for you. Um, AI is increasingly penetrating our lives, I'd say. So, and given the fact that I consider archaeology to be a science because the books that I've read, the people that I've talked to, and how is it impacting? How is AI impacting your day to day, and how do you see the future of AI? Changing the day to day of an archaeologist.
AI doesn't work for us at all. I mean, not for me. I mean, I'm hoping that the younger lot who's maybe somebody else in future may come up with a solution, but AI doesn't work at all. I mean, you can't use AI for research. It's all bullshit. It doesn't give you correct information at all. I mean, students who use ChatGPT shouldn't, because ChatGPT just makes up references which are not even in existence. Plus, when you're doing research, AI, I don't think so is going to help you at all. Where AI can help you, maybe in visualizing, but that won't be accurate again.
Okay.
Because if you're visualizing a city, we take measurements, right? Like if a city is spread in a particular area, how much is the average size of a room, and then how many bricks are made will be used to make, maybe in that way, making in creating conjecture images, AI could be helpful, but you need to give proper prompts and
Yes.
you need to know that maybe helping us in visualization, creating conjectures. But other than that, I don't think so AI being that helpful.
नहीं, but accessing information, like किसी ने इजिप्ट में कोई पेपर लिखा था, and can that be applicable, like accessing
But
information through
that
the
paper
internet?
accessing information now, there are a lot of open source in as school, college libraries have a lot of they tie ups with JSTOR and other
Okay.
uh, op- you know journals where you can get access. Now, accessing, because of social media and because of YouTube, because of various things, accessing data or approaching somebody working in different parts of the country is not that difficult the way it used to be earlier, because that back then you will have to have physical books.
Yes.
Today, thanks to digitization, a lot of good books now becoming digitized. And truth be told, a lot of archaeologists are now wanting to have open source journals where they don't have to pay without a paywall sort of a thing, because that helps students to get access to researchers to get access to it. So I don't think see, that's what I'm saying. I have done this experiment where AI creates their own reference, its own reference. Uh, you
Okay.
know, um, and so, and anyways, when it's a rule of thumb. If we are writing a research paper or if you're doing any research, it's best to write what you know, because it's all peer reviewed. So it's anyways you have to read what you are going to be quoting. So without that, so see, it's all your research work is all your it's all about your aptitude. So I don't think research it can help you in research, but maybe in broader field work perhaps, or in creating visual, giving you a conjectural drawing or conjectural understanding of settlement, perhaps it can. But I don't see AI taking over archaeology. It's all human
Okay.
touch. Without even remote sensing and other non-invasive techniques cannot replace field excavation.
Mm,
They can help. They are indicators, but they are far. You need to really still need to check or test them in the field.
gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, Disha, that's all I had actually. Thank you for coming on the show. It was very, very helpful.
Thank you so much.
And I hope I can have you again on a separate topic
Yeah.
altogether. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know
I'm
you're
so
a,
sorry it took us long time to plan things out. But
yeah,
yeah,
but don't
nice.
worry. My persistence is infinite, so I'll keep on emailing you and we can
Yeah,
schedule it. So,
yeah, okay, cool, we'll do that.
perfect. Yeah,
Chalo,
thank you. Bye
bye.
bye.
Bye.